Welcome to Scrubbed In, the DVM Journey, the podcast where we dive into the wild, rewarding, and sometimes unpredictable world of becoming a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. I'm your host, Grace Gaynor, a current second-year veterinary student at Virginia, Maryland College of Veterinary Medicine. Whether you're an aspiring vet, a vet student, or just passionate about animals, this is your backstage pass into becoming a DVM. From classroom to clinic, we're sharing the insights, tips, and real-life experiences to help you thrive on your journey to becoming a vet. So scrub in, and let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of Scrubbed In. I'm your host, Grace Gaynor, and today I'm excited to welcome to the show our first guest who is a practicing veterinarian. Today I'm welcoming to the show Dr. Peter Rowan, who is a current associate veterinarian, medical director, and co-owner at New Hope Veterinary Hospital, which is located in Belmont, North Carolina. Dr. Rowan, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and answer some of your questions.
Awesome. So let's get started. Previously, I have started the show by asking students to tell us about their journey to veterinary school. Can you tell us about your journey to veterinary school and what inspired you to become a business owner at such a young age?
Yeah, of course. So where it all starts is at a younger age. I actually didn't know I wanted to be a veterinarian when I first was younger, I guess I should say. But what actually happened is I have a leopard gecko who is now 24. Got him when I was 4 years old. I can't believe he's still doing well, but he is. It's wonderful. But I went to a PetSmart to get some crickets and ended up coming home with a kitten instead. You know how that goes, of course. And then ultimately the poor little guy ended up passing away at a young age. And I think that's where it really sparked in me. This is about when I was in 5th or 6th grade, the desire to become a veterinarian and help animals. So instead of going out and getting a new kitten, I actually decided to go and foster for our local Humane Society. We ended up fostering probably about 65 to 70 kittens, not at once, but over time, usually 2 to 4 at a time for I'd probably say about 4 or 5 years that I did that. In the meantime as well, growing up in the Washington, D.C. area, I did volunteer work at the National Zoo, got to do a lot of behind-the-scenes work there as well. And it came time to apply to an undergraduate college. I wasn't really sure still, even at that point, I wanted to be a veterinarian, but it was really between that or, I don't know. I really don't know. So I decided to go the pre-vet route, did that, enjoyed it, got to study abroad with racehorses in Australia, in Sydney, Australia for 6 weeks. That was a blast. Did a lot of mentorship in small animal over the summers and during the school year where I could. And then one thing led to another. I applied to veterinary school, got into Ohio State, and haven't looked back since. I went to Ohio State for my 4 years, and now I've been practicing for about 4 years as well. But to kind of also go back, the reason I wanted to become a business owner at such a young age was inspiration behind my father. He was a small business owner as well, but he wasn't in veterinary medicine. He did flooring and other sorts of handyman work is the best way to put it. But I got to watch him. He had a wonderful work-life balance. He was always there for me when I needed him to be, for baseball games, for concerts, for all sorts of different things. And I wanted to be able to do the same for my family. And I found that being a business owner is one way to do so and kind of help with that work-life balance. The other thing is that as a veterinarian, we have very high student debt to income ratio, and it's a great way of building our financial security as we continue to progress through our career.
Awesome. Thank you for that answer. Can you tell the listeners about your kind of how old you are now and at what age you ended undergrad and then went into veterinary school and then started this practice?
Of course. So interestingly, in Maryland, they changed the cutoff date the next year after I started grade school, as in I got to graduate early, not because I skipped a grade, but because I started school early. So I graduated high school at 17. I went to Clemson. I did have some credit hours from taking AP classes in high school. Was able to graduate in 3 years from Clemson with a degree, so I was finished at 20. I was the youngest member of my veterinary school class at 20 when I started. Graduated at 24. Ended up becoming a practicing veterinarian at 24. Practiced for 2 years, then became a partner at 26. And as of this month, I am now medical director at 28 of New Hope Veterinary Hospital.
I think that is absolutely so cool.
And I want to understand, what made you feel equipped to start a practice so early on in your career?
Yeah, it's hard, and it's one of those questions, and it makes you think, why? And I think I dove headfirst in. There were a lot of what ifs. What if I don't have the money? What if it doesn't work out? What if I want to move? But I kind of put all of those what ifs to the side and just said, you got to do it to find out. So ultimately, when it came to the interviewing process after veterinary school, I interviewed with probably 15 plus veterinary clinics from Maryland down to Florida. And I had 6 main checkpoints that I wanted to look for, and that was mentorship, location, modern medicine, a good work-life balance, a good strong team, and then also a good financial package in that. And I found that checked all my boxes. And once I started work, it's a whole thing to interview and discuss, the principles, but once you get in, you have to find if it's a good fit. And luckily enough for me, I did find that it was a great fit. I had such a strong team around me that I completely put my trust in them, and they put their trust in me. And then when we decided to open New Hope Veterinary Hospital in 2023, once again, there was a lot of what ifs, but I just dove headfirst into it, decided this is what I was going to do. I was going to lead a practice, and it's what I wanted to do, and I had to keep reaffirming that to myself, and ultimately it's been nothing but good things. And having the backing of veterinary practice partners as a whole has helped a lot too. They've opened the door for me to learn a lot more through our VPP Academy, and then as well as some leadership groups, and then other mentorship. It really sped me up on my business knowledge as well. So it was just a combination of all these things. I don't necessarily think I was financially prepared, but I did what I could do, and I pushed through, and now I'm back at a pretty even point, as the easiest way to put it, within about a year time, and I've enjoyed every little bit of it from there.
Yeah. You mentioned some really awesome things. I want to discuss how you came up with those 6 things that you were really looking for when you were interviewing for these positions. I feel like it's so important for us as veterinary students to use this time to figure out what we want in our careers. So how did you go about finding out for yourself what those 6 things were going to be? Did you take some time, go to a quiet place and really think about it? How did you develop those 6 things that you knew you were looking for in your first job?
It's hard, and it did take a lot of thinking. I don't think it's something that you'll sit down one day in 5 minutes, right. You'll have an aha moment that says, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I think it was a combination of experience through veterinary school, talking to my peers, asking, what have you been thinking about when you're looking for a job? Asking my mentor, and when I was shadowing over the summers, what did you do coming out of veterinary school? I know that may have been some time ago, and things may have changed, but what were your choices? Asking a lot of questions and how the veterinary world works. It's easy to learn in principle the medicine, but in the real vet world, you're practicing that medicine, but you're also a business person. So you have to kind of figure out what works best. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I don't really have a great answer to that question in terms of here's what you do step by step. I think it really is, you just got to sit down and decide what those key factors are going to be. It may be 2 for someone, it may be 10 for someone else, but I think it does have to be somewhat of a concise list, because if you have too many, it is going to be hard to check those boxes. And if you make them broad, it's pretty easy to check the boxes, to say the least, at least so you'd think. As I say that, of course, I interviewed about 15 places and only one checked all 6 of my boxes. So it may not be as easy as I'm saying that out loud, but you know what you're interviewing for. And a part of interviewing is you're getting interviewed by that company, but you need to interview them back and determine this is what's right for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And at least having a couple things going into those interviews is probably super helpful, so that people can have an idea of when a company doesn't meet those standards or requirements or things that you're looking for, maybe this isn't the best fit, right? So you can avoid getting into that job or that first job that you really don't like. So exactly. I love that you mentioned that. So as you mentioned, one of your 6 things was that you wanted to pursue ownership and partnership. Mm-hmm. So how did you go about starting your practice with VPP? Or
so in my interviews, I would make it very clear I'd like to own. And own is a broad term. May it be we work out a deal and I buy out the owner, and it's a single doctor, 2-doctor practice. Sure, maybe that was it. Maybe it was a partnership, and maybe it was in a new clinic or an already established clinic. I really didn't know. What ended up happening during my interview with Total Bond is there were no guarantees, and I understood that, but had already been talk of a new practice opening. And the important part that was explained to me that I didn't know was that investment was dollar for dollar. So that means that when I put $1 in, I get that exact amount when it comes to the percentage point. So if 1% is $10,000 when you open that practice, well, as it opens and becomes profitable, now at some point in the future, let's say 10 years, that 1% is now worth $50,000. The cheapest time to buy in was day one. It was yesterday. So that perked my interest coming out of vet school. I didn't have a ton of money to play around with. I don't think most of us do. So hearing that and saying, okay, maybe I can buy in at a smaller amount, become a smaller partner is exactly what will fit for me. So it came in part of the interview. So then I worked for about a year and a half before plans really started to formulate. I learned how to become a veterinarian, how to just be a vet. I mean, I think that's one of the first key parts. You can't skip ahead to being a partner without knowing how to practice medicine. So I did that, and then ultimately, finally the day come. This was like the end of 22. Veterinary practice partners said, we have found a building, we have a space, we're going to create this space as a veterinary clinic. We're going to kind of gut out the back side of this building. We're going to make it the way you want to make it. And I was like, the way I want to make it? Okay, all right, sounds great. So me and one other doctor, we had meeting after meeting. I'm talking probably in total 500 hours worth of meetings, where we discussed different ideas about how the clinic was going to be shaped and built and what would work, what wouldn't work, redraws, replans. Once we got that done, we ended up doing a big order list, all the medications we wanted, all the instruments we wanted, all of those equipment, everything we could think of. And the good part is that I focused on all those medical decisions. I thankfully had good partners in the background, being VPP, who had opened new practices before. So they took care of all the dirty work, the things I did not want to do. So that was the advertising, the HR, getting the electricity set up, jumping through all the legal hoops with the state to set up a veterinary clinic. So they got to do all of that, and I got to do all of the fun things ultimately. But in this time frame, I'm only 2 years out of school, and I had to invest around, I'd probably say April of 23 before we opened in July of 23, so less than 2 years out of practicing. And so I was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to come up with the money for this? So I lived a good life, work-life balance, still traveled, still went to concerts, which I really enjoy doing, and I just saved up my money, and I found a percentage that worked well for me. At first, I had agreed to 15%, which I don't know why I said that, because that's way too much. And I ultimately ended up landing on 3.5%. Could I have taken out a loan? Sure, but I didn't want another loan. Right. So I ended up going with 3.5%. I was able to pay that all in cash. That's all mine. And I'm really happy that I did that. May not sound like a lot, but I feel valued as a partner. I've made most of the decisions, most of the work that's gone into New Hope Veterinary Hospital, and over the past 2 years, I've watched it grow significantly from that hard work. So it's really been enjoyable. That's not a word. Enjoyable. I think that's what I was looking for. Enjoyable experience and very rewarding one. And all the less. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that your journey is so fascinating. I want to go back to veterinary practice partners. So they are the ones that found the space, or did they just help you get the space? What was their role in getting the new clinic?
Great question. So what they did is they took a map, is the best way to put it, and said, where is going to be the best location to put a brand new practice? And from that map, they determined there was kind of just like this 1 mile radius in Belmont, North Carolina, that would encapsulate about 10 new housing developments. I would guess over 1,000 people moving in, and obviously with people come animals. Now the tricky thing is there are other vet clinics in that area. So, starting up, there is literally a veterinary clinic the same side of the road, 1.5 miles down, not very far. And then going down another road about 2 miles, there's another vet clinic. and come to find out a brand new clinic opened on the other side of Belmont. Neither of us knew about each other as well, so strong competition. But ultimately, we kind of veterinary practice partners, and to be honest, I don't really know because I wasn't too involved. I was learning how to be a vet in this first year out, and that's when these original talks were going on. Went to a financial company that owned a building right where we wanted to be, and they said, hey, we'll manage the building, we'll move out, find somewhere else. You can have the front half of the building, there's another company in the back half of the building, and you can have that. And we're like, great, sounds good. And then on signing day, they said, actually, we don't want to move. So sorry, find somewhere else. And we're like, oh no. So then we were talking about building a new clinic, like building a building, but having someone else own it and manage it, all sorts of stuff, only to find out that they were expanding the road and it would cut the front third of the building off. So we were like, well, we can't do that. So we were really stuck in this point of, I don't know what to do. And then the financial group reached back out and said, actually, you can have the back half of the building now. Would you like that? And we're like, that sounds wonderful. So we ended up signing with them, and I mean, the turnaround was like 7-8 months. It was really fast, the time that we were able to sign that contract, get everything remodeled, and get everything we needed in there. It was really quick to getting in. So the veterinary practice partners played a big role in the market research to determine where the best spot was. And then I'm going to put in air quotes, boss, but I'd like to say we're colleagues at this point. Dr. Mark Epstein and the partners at Total Bond, they know the area well. So just having that general knowledge of, yes, I know I can feel that it's going to be a good spot to put it. They really helped in that decision making as well of where to hone in and find a building, for example.
Yeah, that's excellent. I like how they were able to help you with the market analysis, and like you said, you were able to do the fun things like order the medicine that you want, order the machines you want. So I think that's really interesting and definitely an avenue of partnership that a lot of current veterinary students are not super familiar with. So I appreciate you shedding some light on that for anyone who is interested in starting their own business but not taking on all the liabilities that may be associated with it.
You got it.
My next question for you is, how did you build your network and develop your client base at this new clinic, especially with the competition that you had around you?
Yeah, so it's hard. How do you do that? And it's easy. Advertise. Well, advertising is not always the easiest.
Yeah.
Ironically, one of the districts, I guess is the best way to put it in, which is not Belmont, but it's a neighboring district, they have very strict signage laws. So having signage out front was hard to get. And even then, I'd say it could be better. So that's like the first thing is someone driving by, and we're like, uh-oh, this is not the best. I'll come back to that in just a second. But ultimately, the very first thing that we got people in the door is, thankfully, the last clinic we worked at, we're all part of a network, so it's okay, but was only 10 minutes down the road. So we had quite a few of our clientele base that I had developed over 2 years, and Dr. Jody Werfel, who's my partner, had been practicing there and built that clinic from the ground up for 30 years. So we had quite a few clients follow us up. So that gave us a nice little, okay, we've got some business coming in the door sort of thing. The next part was just a bunch of advertising, something that I knew I'd have to do, but I wasn't positive what I was going to be doing. We went to a baseball game and had a table sitting out front. We did local parades for like Christmas and Thanksgiving. We would do these parades. I've done 3 TV interviews, and all my friends who live in the Charlotte area are like, oh my goodness, you're on the TV. And I was like, it won't be the last time, thankfully. So I've written news articles every 2 months for a local magazine, just to kind of give back and we talk about different things, I guess is the best way to put it. It can really vary. My last one was on why adopting a shelter pet is much better ultimately, and like what you can expect and do's and don'ts of that. So most recently, I've been making TikToks with our clinic. I've got some younger girls as our veterinary technicians, and they're very into TikTok, and I've been making some TikToks. So I will be famous soon, and I will be moving to California to pursue that. Just kidding. But in the early days, I mean, it was very simple things, and the biggest part was with the competition. We would get a lot of overflow. We'd get a lot of calls saying, my veterinarian who is 2 miles down the road can't get me in, and my dog's very sick, and I'm disappointed with that. And I would say, well, thankfully we can get you in, and we'll always get you in. And we have stuck by that. We have a don't say no policy. Of course, if it's, not even a later day. Just last week, I had a patient come in at 5:29 with a split ear from daycare, and we stayed an hour late to make sure it was fixed. So as long as our doors are open, we're happy to see those clients. And so then it becomes a word of mouth. We would ask clients to do Google advertising, and then also to do refer a friend discount. So if they refer a friend, they get $25, and that friend gets $25.
Right.
Recently, we've been doing $50 off for new client discounts. So if they just call and say, hey, I found you, we say, come on in, your new client will also give you a discount for coming in. That helps a lot as well. I really didn't understand the power of Google. Like, yes, everything you look for is on Google, but the more reviews you have, the higher up you pop up. And I would say a majority of our new clients now say, I saw you had great reviews on Google, so I'd like to start coming here. So Google was super, super helpful. And then recently, after some battles, we have updated our signage. We put a giant sign on the side of the building coming one way, another bigger sign on coming from the other way, and then we're working on adding an additional sign in the front of our front yard, effectively, to really help capture those clients driving by. My absolute favorite thing that I've done out of all of this, though, is that our competition, our arch nemesis, if you want to call it, a couple miles down the road, we put a giant billboard in their front yard. They have a billboard, and our billboard, massive, and it honestly pops so much more than their clinic that, so we some I will say friendly competition. Maybe not so friendly, but not to them. But that's my favorite thing, is that we put a billboard in our competitors' front yards. So.
I love that. And it's so interesting because you would never think that signage would be a problem. So I'm interested that you had to come up against that and you had to overcome that. So.
And neither did I. I could have never guessed that we would have run into that. You'd think as a community they'd want the business to thrive, and I'm not saying they don't, but they're definitely not making it easy. So that was just a random small law that we just have tried to become creative with, and so far it seems to be working.
Yeah, sounds like it's working for you. I had a question about how you assembled your team. It's clear that you bring great company culture. It sounds like you're a very upbeat person, very positive in the workplace, but you also mentioned having, a saying no policy, allowing people to come in maybe even if people have to stay late. Mm-hmm. So how did you assemble your team, in that you obviously are starting a new clinic and you want to have the same vision of what that clinic is going to be with your team?
So some of the most important things, and I think this is a first and foremost, is we have our vision statement and our mission statement and our values in our break room. So as we hire new staff members and team members, we want to make sure they understand those values from day one. What was kind of to my advantage is, while we did have a new hospital, we took it was kind of stolen, it's whatever, but we took a nurse or a veterinary technician from where I had worked previously, as well as a long-term employee who started off as a receptionist, and she's now our practice manager. So there were 4 of us that kind of set the base, and then we interviewed and hired 2 more veterinary assistants to join us. And since we kind of had that culture already developed at a previous clinic, it was easy to translate that culture into this new practice. Now the question is, how do you continue to maintain that as we grow and bring new people in? We are looking for a veterinary receptionist right now, and when that person comes in, how do you not break that wave? And I think it starts at your mission statement, your core values, your vision statement, and sticking to what you believe in. And ultimately, yes, I would say I'm fairly positive and a big company person, and love what I do. I love my team. I think another big part of it is I reward my team when we have a good month. We have an Amazon wish list that they all have made for me, and I'll buy them gifts off of that. We'll have, for the last month we had our best month ever. I bought roses for my practice manager. I think those little things also play a big role in motivation and culture as well too, to not forget to reward your team members for hard work outside of just, you get a pay raise once a year, for example, whatever it may be.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you find that when you give those little incentives, that incentivizes them to stay late when you're asking them to stay late?
There's always groans. I groan as well too.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is. And the answer is yes. I really do think. And it's after those days, you say, hey, we've stayed late 3 days in a row.
Right.
Here is a box of donuts to say thank you for your hard work. It sounds simple. And I think it's cliche almost to bring food. You always hear, I got a pizza party. But at least in our group, I think it's well appreciated, and it helps to keep morale up, and I think it even drives them to work harder and efficiently and as a good team, because they know they're going to get rewarded for their hard work ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not cliche, because I've worked as a veterinary technician, and those little things I really do feel like go a long way, especially when you might be asking people to stay late consistently or something like that, recognizing that their time is valuable and that they are working hard. So I think that's a really awesome way to boost company culture. So I like that you do that. My next question is, clearly you have a lot of competition, and you have kind of mentioned some things that set you apart from your competitors, but what do you think really makes your vet clinic unique?
This is always such a hard question. I think the simplest and most obvious answer is we see exotics.
Yeah.
It is really, really hard to find a veterinarian that will just see an exotic. I think it's more of, not that we don't know what we're doing, but we're fearful of seeing those animals.
Yes.
And I'm not boarded by any means. I'm pretty much a primary care veterinarian, but you can fix a lot of things just through primary care ultimately.
Right.
So I think that's the obvious. Now, what makes us unique just in general, I think, is how much we give back to the community, and we truly care about our patients, our clients, and the community. Some examples of that is that when kids come in with their parents and their pets, we give them coloring books and stickers to play with. All puppies get a new puppy kind of handout bag where they got toys, and there's information about new puppy ownership for pet parents. When on the opposite spectrum, if we have to go through euthanasia, we have these grieving bags that have a poem in it and some options to help with local groups for grieving. I recently went to a preschool down the road and talked to 2, 3, and 4-year-olds about what a veterinarian is, and brought stuffed animals in and talked with them for an hour. We've done adoption events at our hospital specifically, where we reached out and said, we'd love for you to come in so we can do this event. So I think it's the fact that we show how much we care, and we translate that to everyone. I think, first and foremost of course is the pets, but I do think the clients, the parents, they really are a core part of it as well too. And we, like I mentioned, we don't say no, because imagine the stress. My dog's got a pretty bad cut. I don't want to go to a vet I don't know. If we can do it, and you say, no, I don't feel like I have the time. That hurts. So I think that's probably the most unique, and that comes back to culture, just like we talked about. So all of our staff follows through on that as well too.
Yeah, and I like that you set that precedent when you were initially talking with clients, saying, oh, your vet can't see you today. Well, we're not going to say no to you today. We want you to come here, but we're also not going to say no to you in the future. We want you to continue to see us as a reliable veterinary provider, right? Mm-hmm. So I love that. What does a typical day look like for you as an associate veterinarian and a medical director?
Yeah, good question. So as just like an associate veterinarian and like a part owner, there's really not a lot of difference. Really, the ownership part is that you own, so you want to drive the business in an ethical and financially smart way. But in my scenario, the way I practice is ethical and financially smart. Right. So there's not really much of a change there. When I invested, I don't really feel like there was I'm now a partner. I have all these extra added responsibilities. Really, the only thing is we meet as a group of partners once a month just to discuss how things are going, go over any ideas we may have. It's pretty easy. It doesn't take a lot out of my work-life balance. The medical director part is a little bit more difficult because any decision made in the hospital is now my decision. May that be something as simple of what vaccines we're going to now order. I had that question the other day because there was a subset of vaccines that were out of stock. Right. Leading the monthly meetings that we have with our team, that's part of that. And making sure the practice manager knows what tasks to accomplish and answer her questions as well. Focusing in on any medical question really comes to me now. I have lunch meetings often, and I also have a medical director meeting with all the other medical directors in our group. So I would say that it's more work, but in reality, my workday is still the same. I may be doing more work, and in between appointments, I may be answering emails, but it's not anything that I would say, oh boy, this is way too much. I can't do this. That sort of thing. I think it's still feels fairly similar to even when I first started. I don't feel like I'm working that much more. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. And when you're making those decisions as medical director, does veterinary practice partners, do they have a say in any of your decisions, or do those decisions solely rest on your shoulders?
What's wonderful is that the medical decisions do rest on my shoulders. Veterinary practice partners, being a larger group, do get deals, and they will let me know these are the deals and this is how it can help your practice, but we don't have to do that.
Right.
So it really is my decision, which is nice, but what's awesome is that veterinary practice partners, that we just have such a wide variety of veterinarians from all the way across the country. It's just nice because we can discuss ideas and make changes as we see fit. But ultimately, to answer your question, the decisions are mine to make.
Awesome. That's pretty cool. So how do you manage having a business while also maintaining a work-rest balance?
Good question. The answer is I don't. But that is
fair.
That is my decision ultimately.
Right.
I burn the candle at both ends of the stick. I work hard. I play hard.
Yeah.
I still manage to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, but ultimately, when I have a strong team and I'm away or I'm not working that day, thankfully, you get the occasional phone call or email, but it is in good hands while I'm away, and it comes back to culture again. I just know that my team is going to take care of things when I'm not around. So I'm not always thinking about work. That's one of the big things. And really, like I mentioned, there's not a really a lot, like extra amount of time added outside of work. So I still go home mostly on time most days. As we come into the summer, we start to get those work-ins a little bit more. We're pretty seasonal in Charlotte, so I feel like into fall, winter, early spring is slower than the opposite time frame. So we're starting to get busy again, and that plays a factor, but that doesn't really have to do anything with the practice ownership or the medical director. That just is the appointment load we need to see. So ultimately, though, I go to sports games, I go to concerts, I travel, I do this, I do that. So I definitely burn the candle at the end of both sticks, but that's my decision. But that helps. I mean, that's my life balance.
Right.
So that's what I enjoy to do. So I just manage it okay. I don't really have anything else to say about that. I'm sure there's other scenarios out there where it's much harder, but when I've got such a strong team that I don't worry about it when I'm out of work. So
yeah, I like
my balance
that a lot.
is the same.
Yeah, I mean, you work when you're there, you work hard, and then you go home and you rest. And 7 to 8 hours of sleep is pretty good.
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I don't get that in vet school. So, what is some advice you would give to any aspiring veterinarians or current veterinarians who are interested in owning their own practice?
Yeah, that's a great question, and this kind of applies to both, to say the least, is to get involved early. So when you are interviewing, like I mentioned, make sure you are very clear that you want to own and kind of give a time frame. And that's okay if it's not like, I mean, it may be that I want to own as soon as I step in the door. I don't know if you'll be able to find that, but it's okay to say I do want to be an owner, but it may be 10 or 15 years from now. Just make your intentions clear. Then once you get into practice there, you want to continue to make your intentions clear. Every few months, maybe do a check-in and say, hey, I think we're still on track. I'd really like to be an owner or a partner within 3 years from now. We're a half month in, I'll check in again with you. Just make sure that that's still something that's feasible. Because you may hit a point where if you wanted to buy in 3 years and now a year in, something changes and you're not able to buy in. So maybe you're looking for another job, or maybe you are trying to find another avenue in which you can buy in. So I think you have to get really involved as soon as you can, and then continue to stay involved. If your mind changes, if you're like, I don't want to be an owner, and then you're already in practice and you say, maybe I do, then as soon as you make that decision, it's time to start asking those questions and decide. Save up money. When you buy in, it's not free and it can cost a good bit of money. With veterinary practice partners, you can buy in at 1 unit, which is 0.1%, which in a de novo could be quite cheap. So and just getting your foot in the door and becoming a partner may be the first step, and you'll buy 0.1% at a time every year, whatever works best for you. So saving up, making sure you have that money to be able to buy in. If you need to get a loan, is that going to be from a family member or a bank or from the company you're buying with? You can work those out. And then also, don't forget other means of retirement. We have a Roth IRA, the 401k, so don't let those fall down for just one avenue. I mean, maybe you need to in the short term, but for long term, it's important to have a diverse portfolio. And, just in general, money ebbs and flows, I think, is the easiest way to put it. There's going to be times where you have a wedding, you have a broken down car, you're going to go down in cash, you're going to go up in cash. So just kind of, as long as you're on an upwards trajectory at some point and you maintain that, then I think that's what you just have to focus in on. And that's how you save enough money to get up to become a partner. And then, maybe you are buying fully that 100%, you have all that liability on your own, but you're also going to have the most financial growth. The more you own, and if it's a great clinic, you're going to be very wealthy very quickly. But if it's something that's really hard and that clinic is a $3 million buy and you don't want to take a big loan or it's not worth the risk, partnership is that kind of avenue to help mitigate those risks. Mitigate those risks. So that's what I'd say there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's great to understand as a current veterinary student that there are many different ways to become a practice owner. So I love that those pieces of advice really just tell you to save up money and, be aware that there are different options for you when you come to that place where you might be interested in practice ownership. What are the biggest challenges you have faced as a practice owner, and what did you learn from them?
Yeah, so this is also kind of a tricky question. I think there's a lot of challenges, but off the top of my head, it's just that was a challenge for a day, and then it was no big deal. So
right.
the two big things that I can think of is battling debt. As a veterinarian, the student debt to income ratio is high, which means that we have a lot of student debt but don't get paid accordingly is the best way to put it. So when I first invested, now I've drained my bank account to a point where I'm comfortable. I still had a cushion in case there was some sort of emergency.
Right.
But we're at a new practice. You're not bringing in as much money. So I was living on an extremely tight budget for about a year until we really picked up in business. So that was probably the hardest part, was kind of feeling like I was back to being in school again, where I was living on such a tight budget. And it was almost a thought of oh no, what if this doesn't work out? All those what ifs again came through my mind, and but they all worked their way out, and I just pushed through and talked to my company. They did help some when I explained that situation, so that was very helpful. But that was probably one of the hardest parts of becoming a practice owner. And the other part was that I was alone at a practice, going from a 5 to 6 doctor practice where there 3, 4, maybe sometimes even 5 veterinarians there at one time. If I had any questions or if an emergency came in, we could all kind of split the work, bounce questions off each other. At this point in time, I still have most days are alone. So it really built me as a clinician, but I was only 2 years out. Once again, that's not very long. I hadn't seen everything under the sun, and it was quite stressful the first year because I was like, oh no, this is now my first time being alone. Well, what do I do in this situation? I think I know, and ultimately I did know, but I just needed that reassurance.
Right.
So sometimes having to just go with my gut and say this is what I need to do. And most of the time it worked. Sometimes I would have to call and say, please come help me, and someone would come over and help out. And that was usually for surgeries, if anything. I'd get emergency foreign body surgeries or emergency nucleations, and I knew how to do it in principle, but I had never done it alone because there was always someone in the building. So, and thankfully our team of doctors in our group is very supportive, so they would come, no questions asked, which was nice. But those are probably the two hardest things that I have dealt with as a practice owner.
That's awesome that you had that network that you were able to fall back on, even though you were doing something that was outside your comfort zone, being alone, you ultimately had that network to fall back on. So love that. What have been the biggest successes for you as a practice owner?
Also a great question, and there's quite a few that I can actually think of. So the first is it opened a lot of doors. I now have the ability to do podcasts like this, and then also get to speak at veterinary schools. I've wanted to kind of speak and teach. I didn't think I'd be doing that until, 20, 25 years into my career, and here I am 4 years into my career doing that. So it opened that door. I've also got to do peer groups, which is kind of like partner meetings where we get into small groups and discuss ideas, and I get to travel, which I love to do. So I've been able to travel a lot more, and just kind of broaden my network a lot faster than I expected. When I came out of school, I thought maybe I'd get to travel for CE for a day or two, and that was it. But I travel multiple times a year, and it's always really fun no matter what I end up doing. The next thing is I made it very clear, to progress my career in general, that becoming a partner, showing my dedication to the company, that's what helped to lead me to medical director so quickly. So I think that played a big role. And then ultimately, I think one of my biggest successes is the success of the team. It's really fun to watch a clinic go from bringing in zero to being over $1 million in just a year's time, and watching our team be excited about that and wanting to grow more and really enjoying themselves so far. So I think that's wonderful to watch the growth and success of our hospital as a whole.
Yeah. Your success is their success, and their success is your success. So I love that you share in those victories. Well, thank you so much for being willing to be interviewed today, Dr. Rowan. I only have a couple more questions to finish us out. I saw in your bio that you enjoy live music. What has been your favorite concert that you've attended?
Yeah, I think I brought it up a few times that I enjoy live music and concerts. So my favorite type of music is country, but one of the best concerts I ever attended was Justin Timberlake's tour right after he played the Super Bowl. Just an amazing production. He's got such a great voice. He did really good there. Paul McCartney, I saw him play in Philadelphia at the Philly Stadium. That was amazing. And then just in general, Luke Combs is one of my favorites. I've seen him multiple times, and he's always puts on a wonderful, wonderful show. So those are kind of the three, and I feel like they're kind of all over the place, but I go to a lot of concerts. So,
broad range of interests, music interests. I saw Luke Combs this summer, and he was fantastic, so definitely want to see him again.
Awesome.
Where can we find you on social media and in practice?
So you can find us at newhopevet.com. My personal social media is at PEROWAN 23, Rowan 23. And then our Instagram for New Hope Veterinary Hospital is at New Hope Veterinary Hospital. And we have a TikTok now, so at New Hope Vet on TikTok as well, too.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for being interviewed. My name is Grace Gaynor, and I just interviewed Dr. Rowan, and we are
Scrubbing out.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Scrubbed In, the DVM Journey. Thanks for tuning in and being a part of our community of future vets and animal lovers. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. It helps others find the show and join the conversation. And if you have any questions or topics you'd love to hear about, feel free to leave us a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep scrubbing in, and remember, the journey to becoming a DVM is one step at a time.